The village of Black Hollow was known for its dense fog and perpetual twilight, casting an eerie pallor over everything. At the heart of this somber settlement stood an ancient, dilapidated mansion, rumored to be cursed. The mansion, known as Ravenswood Manor, had been abandoned for decades, its walls echoing with ghostly whispers and the creaks of restless spirits. Ravenswood Manor loomed at the edge of a desolate forest, its once grand facade now covered in thick ivy and moss. The windows were shattered, and the front door hung precariously on its hinges. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of decay. The grand hall was filled with dusty furniture and cobwebs, and portraits of long-dead Ravenswood ancestors seemed to watch every move with hollow, accusing eyes. Elena returned to Black Hollow after receiving a cryptic letter from a solicitor, informing her of an inheritance. Despite Father Armand's warnings about the curse that had driven her family to ruin, she felt compelled to claim her legacy. Henry insisted on accompanying her, sensing the danger that lurked within Ravenswood Manor. The first night in the mansion was restless. Strange noises echoed through the halls, and the temperature dropped unnaturally low. Elena's sleep was plagued by nightmares of a woman in a tattered wedding dress, her face a grotesque mask of rotting flesh and hollow eyes. She awoke in a cold sweat, the distant sound of a music box playing a haunting melody. Determined to uncover the truth, Elena and Henry explored the mansion, discovering hidden passages and forgotten rooms. In the attic, they found an old trunk containing a wedding dress, stained with blood and accompanied by a diary. The diary belonged to Isabella Ravenswood, Elena's great-great-grandmother, who had disappeared on her wedding day. The entries detailed Isabella's descent into madness, her growing paranoia about her fiancé's infidelity, and her eventual murder at the hands of her husband, who had buried her alive in the mansion's crypt. As they read the final entry, a chilling breeze swept through the attic, and the faint sound of sobbing filled the air. Father Armand arrived, carrying ancient texts and talismans. He explained that Isabella's restless spirit had cursed the Ravenswood family, dooming them to relive her torment. The only way to break the curse was to reunite Isabella with her wedding ring, buried somewhere in the crypt beneath the mansion. As they descended into the crypt, the air grew thick with a sense of impending doom. The walls were lined with bones and skulls, and the flickering candlelight cast grotesque shadows. They finally found Isabella's coffin, but as they pried it open, the lid flew off with a deafening crash. Inside lay the skeletal remains of Isabella, clutching a decayed bouquet. Suddenly, the corpse bride emerged, her hollow eyes glowing with malevolent fury. She reached out with skeletal hands, her touch icy and suffused with the stench of death. The crypt echoed with her vengeful wails as she advanced toward Elena, her bony fingers reaching for the ring that now hung around Elena's neck. Henry tried to intervene, but was thrown against the wall by an unseen force, blood trickling from a gash on his forehead. Father Armand chanted incantations, but the spirit's rage only grew stronger. Just as Isabella's skeletal hand closed around Elena's throat, the ground trembled and the walls began to crumble. In a desperate bid, Elena thrust the ring into the skeletal hand, hoping to placate the spirit. For a moment, there was silence. Then, a blood-curdling scream erupted from Isabella's mouth as her body disintegrated into dust. The mansion shook violently, the roof caving in, forcing Elena, Henry, and Father Armand to flee. As they stumbled out into the cold night air, the mansion collapsed behind them, engulfed in flames. The curse seemed lifted, but as they looked back, they saw a ghostly figure in a wedding dress standing amidst the ruins, her hollow eyes watching them with a sinister gleam. The villagers spoke of the strange occurrences that followed, of shadows that moved on their own and whispers that carried through the night. Elena and Henry knew the truth. The curse of the corpse bride had not been broken, only appeased. And somewhere in the ruins of Ravenswood Manor, Isabella's vengeful spirit awaited the next Ravenswood to claim their inheritance. As the village of Black Hollow began to settle back into its eerie normalcy, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that Isabella's spirit still lingered. The nights grew colder, and the whispers that seemed to follow her every move grew louder, more insistent. Henry, too, was haunted by the memories of that night, and he vowed to find a way to free Elena from the curse that bound her family. The village itself became a character in the unfolding horror. The fog grew thicker, and the once familiar paths seemed to twist and turn on their own. The villagers, once wary but welcoming, began to avoid Elena and Henry, their fear manifesting in whispers and suspicious glances. The ruins of Ravenswood Manor stood like a festering wound at the edge of the village, an ever-present reminder of the curse that had yet to be broken. Elena and Henry sought out Margaret, hoping her knowledge could provide some insight. They found her in a small, cluttered cottage filled with ancient books and strange artifacts. Margaret, with her eyes clouded by age and wisdom, revealed that the curse was more complex than they had imagined. Isabella's spirit was not the only one trapped. The souls of all who had died within the manor's walls were bound to it, their torment feeding the curse's power. Margaret spoke of an ancient ritual, one that required the blood of a Ravenswood and the heart of someone who truly loved them. This ritual, if performed correctly, could sever the ties binding the spirits to the mansion and finally lay them to rest. However, it was fraught with danger, and failure would mean eternal damnation for those involved. As they absorbed Margaret's words, Lucas arrived, drawn by his research and the inexplicable pull of the supernatural. His presence brought both hope and tension, for while his knowledge was invaluable, his fascination with the curse bordered on obsession. Lucas revealed that he had uncovered references to a hidden chamber beneath the crypt, a place where the ritual could be performed. Elena, Henry, Margaret, and Lucas ventured once more into the ruins of Ravenswood Manor. The journey through the collapsed remnants of the mansion was treacherous, each step a reminder of the horrors they had previously faced. The crypt seemed even darker and more foreboding, the shadows thick with malice. They discovered the hidden chamber, its walls covered in arcane symbols and a large, ancient altar at its center. As they prepared for the ritual, the temperature plummeted, and a palpable sense of dread filled the air. Elena, with trembling hands, cut her palm and let her blood drip onto the altar. Henry, his eyes filled with determination and fear, stood beside her, ready to offer his heart in the name of love and sacrifice. Lucas began the incantation, his voice echoing in the chamber, mingling with the whispers of the restless spirits. The ground shook, and a spectral wind whipped through the chamber, carrying the anguished cries of the damned. Suddenly, the ghostly figure of Isabella appeared, her hollow eyes burning with rage and sorrow. As the ritual reached its climax, Isabella's spirit surged forward, trying to stop the ceremony. Henry stepped in front of Elena, his love for her giving him the strength to face the vengeful ghost. With a final, defiant cry, he plunged a dagger into his chest, his blood mingling with Elena's on the altar. The chamber was engulfed in blinding light, and the air was filled with the sound of shattering glass and the screams of freed souls. When the light faded, Isabella was gone, and the oppressive weight of the curse seemed to lift. But as Elena cradled Henry's lifeless body, she realized the price of their victory. In the aftermath, Lucas and Margaret helped Elena out of the ruins. The village seemed brighter, the fog less oppressive, but the cost had been great. Elena was the last of the Ravenswoods, her family line ended, and her heart heavy with grief. But as they walked away from the ruins, a chill ran down Elena's spine. She turned back to see the faint outline of a woman in a wedding dress, standing in the shadows. The curse was not entirely broken. A piece of it still lingered, waiting, watching, ready to rise again when the time was right. The legend of the corpse bride would continue to haunt Black Hollow, a dark whisper in the night, a shadow that never fully disappeared. As Elena, Lucas, and Margaret made their way back to the village, the lingering presence of the curse weighed heavily on Elena's mind. She couldn't escape the feeling that something was left unresolved, a dark echo in her soul. The next few days passed in a blur of grief and reflection. The villagers, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, cautiously began to approach Elena, offering their condolences and wary support. Despite the temporary respite, Elena knew that the curse's shadow still loomed over Black Hollow. One night, unable to sleep, Elena decided to return to the ruins of Ravenswood Manor alone. She needed to face whatever was left of the curse, to understand what still bound the spirits to the place. Armed with only a lantern and a resolve born of desperation, she walked through the fog-shrouded forest to the crumbling mansion. Upon entering the ruins, Elena felt an immediate chill. The air was thick with the past, the ghosts of memories long forgotten. She made her way to the hidden chamber beneath the crypt, the lantern's light flickering against the ancient walls. As she stood before the altar where Henry had sacrificed himself, a soft, eerie glow began to emanate from the shadows. The ghostly figure of Isabella appeared, but this time her expression was different. Less rage, more sorrow. Behind her, other spirits slowly materialized, the restless souls of Ravenswood Manor. Elena took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Isabella," she said, her voice steady, "why do you still haunt this place? What more can I do to bring you peace?" Isabella's hollow eyes fixed on Elena, and she spoke in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "My torment was born from betrayal and pain, but your love and sacrifice have weakened the bonds that hold me here. One final act of atonement remains." A spectral hand pointed to a corner of the chamber, where a small, intricately carved box lay hidden among the rubble. Elena approached and opened it, finding a locket with a faded portrait inside. Isabella and her husband on their wedding day. Tears filled Elena's eyes as she realized what had to be done. "You need to forgive," Elena whispered, holding the locket out towards Isabella's spirit. "Let go of the hatred and pain. Find peace." Isabella's ghostly form shimmered, her expression softening. She reached out, her translucent fingers brushing the locket. As she touched it, the glow intensified, enveloping both her and the other spirits in a warm, purifying light. The ground shook slightly, and the oppressive atmosphere that had long plagued Ravenswood Manor seemed to lift. One by one, the spirits faded, their tormented whispers replaced by a serene silence. Isabella was the last to go, her eyes meeting Elena's with a look of gratitude and finality. As the light dimmed, Elena felt an overwhelming sense of relief. The curse had been broken, the spirits freed at last. She turned to leave, but a familiar figure stood in the doorway. Henry, or rather, his spirit. He looked at her with a soft smile, his form fading into the dawn's first light. "Thank you," his voice echoed faintly. "Live well, Elena." Elena returned to Black Hollow, the first rays of morning casting a golden light over the village. The fog was lifting, and for the first time in generations, the air felt lighter, freer. The villagers sensed the change and began to rebuild, their fear replaced by hope. Margaret and Lucas were waiting for her, their faces etched with concern that melted into relief when they saw her. Elena recounted her final encounter with the spirits, and together they understood that the curse was finally laid to rest. Years passed, and Elena, with the help of Lucas and Margaret, transformed Ravenswood Manor from a place of dread into a haven of history and memory. The mansion became a museum, telling the tale of the corpse bride and the bravery of those who broke the curse. Though the story of the corpse bride remained a chilling legend, it was now a tale of redemption and love overcoming darkness. The mansion, once a symbol of despair, stood as a beacon of hope, reminding all who visited that even the darkest curses can be broken by the light of love and forgiveness.